So I really didn't know what video I wanted to do today, and I did decide to just do something a little bit more different than what I usually film, because I'm 2 days post about 3 weeks of being extremely unwell. 1 week was an acute illness, and the other 2 weeks was literally just my chronic illness, being extremely unhappy. So I have been basically gone and down for almost a month, and I'm not gonna lie. All I can do is basically laugh and dissociate, because it's not a nice experience, and it's not something that you can just kind of come out of and be like, cool. But the whole basically month of me being so heavily and severely unwell was traumatizing, to say the least. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. And yeah, just for a bit of context, I have endometriosis, and I'm suspecting I've got adenomyosis now. So I'm not doing okay, to say the least. I'm not doing okay. But I just wanted to give some context of the illness that I have been diagnosed with, finally. And yeah, so endometriosis especially affects my daily living, and it's very severe, the pain that I get and the symptoms that I experience as well. And if I do have endometriosis, it kind of would make sense with the symptoms I do get why they're so horrifically bad. I've been dying to sit back down in this chair and just film, because I really miss doing it. And there's so many videos that I've had planned, and I've been literally researching so much and planning so much, and just missing putting my makeup on and being able to sit down for hours at a time and not feel like I just can't sit any longer and I need to go lie back down. I may as well start off doing a video and get me back into it by talking about something that has just recently happened to me, and talk about how productivity and being ill and bouncing back after being ill or continuing to be ill is not talked about enough. And I feel like not many people who don't have a chronic illness or disability truly grasp how freaking hard it is to come back from being so unwell with your illness, and especially if you've had an acute illness on top of it. It's really not easy to lock that off and just be like, right, cool, I'll just go back to whatever I need to be doing. You'll have like the end of the flare up, and then you go back to whatever your normal status is. So for me, I have chronic pain, so I'm in pain every single day, and so you go back to that, but then you mentally are like, how do I get through what I just went through? Because you've gone through something physically and mentally, and then after it's all calmed down, it's like you have to mentally also get through that. It's like asking someone to go through a car crash every other 2 weeks basically, and then go back to normalcy and just be fine, and then remind them again in the next 2 weeks. It could be the same in the next 2 weeks, and then go back through it again, get through it mentally, go back through it again. Like, it's not easy, and I think the mental side of things is extremely hard, as well as the physical, obviously. But I think the mental side, people don't realise with a chronic illness or disabilities that you have to still mentally get yourself through after having a very horrible flare-up. It's so difficult because you never get used to it. And I feel like people think you get used to your own illness, and you just don't. You really don't. Like, sometimes you can say you get used to it, like, oh, I'm used to this. But realistically, there's nothing about getting used to being in pain all the time and having severe symptoms. And so when you live with a condition that's already draining, something as normal as a cold or a flu makes things way harder. It can put you down longer, and it's honestly so mentally exhausting. And it's like you have to grieve the fact that you were ill with something completely different than usual, and you have to treat that, you have to focus on that in order for you to get hopefully back to something normal. But that normal, for me anyway, in this case, I went straight into a horrible flare-up. So I didn't really have a break. I had a week of being ill with like the flu. I did have like a really horrible ulcer that I never really get, so I was really run down. So I could barely eat, I could barely talk. It was so painful. That ulcer was just the bane of my life in that time. And it's like when that started calming down, I was like, cool, maybe I can get back to making videos and feel like a human again. But little did I know, I was literally a day or two away from the start of a almost 2-week flare-up that was not showing me any mercy, like no mercy whatsoever. I was just literally spat out into the pits of hell. I can't explain to you how horrible it was to go through the flare-up I did go through after being ill with a flu for about 7 to 10 days. It was horrible, and it's just, I'm still trying to like mentally just kind of lock it off and be like, okay, I can accept this. Because to me, a month has gone. A month has gone, and that whole time I was very unwell. And the only relief I had was just practically nothing. Like, even the stuff I have, like my painkillers, did not touch it. And I feel like a lot of people just assume like a chronic illness is like one steady state, but it fluctuates. It fluctuates so horrifically, and to the point where sometimes you reach like a peak and you think, surely this is the most and the worst you could ever experience. And then there'll be another month all of a sudden where you're like, nope, this definitely feels like the worst. And it's like, you'll never know because you can't predict it. You're going off a flare-up schedule and not the other way around. Like, even though with like something like endometriosis and adenomyosis, you can kind of go off your menstrual cycle, and mine is heavily affected by it, but I'm in a lot of pain throughout the month no matter what. It doesn't matter where I am in the cycle. And typically I'm worse during my ovulation, and I'm worse about a few days before my period, and it's like horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And that equates to about 2 weeks of a month where I'm just completely not well at all. And sometimes I will have a good 10 days where I've been so well and I can do so many things, but that's only 10 days of a month. It's very difficult. And when something fluctuates so much, you have to remember that like you mentally have to try and catch up with that fluctuating. It's like literally being thrown into like a black hole, into an abyss, and like you face planting into like nothingness, and then all your symptoms and pain are just floating about and hitting you left, right and centre, and you're just there like never ending. And there's sometimes no warning. Sometimes you'll have like a slow lead up to it and you'll be like, oh, okay, maybe I'm going to have a flare up. But sometimes it happens so severely where you're just like, holy cow, there is no way your body can go through something like this and you come out the other end and still be alive. And in society, there's this idea that if you are resting, that's your time off, and afterwards you should be able to get back. But with a chronic illness, there's no on and off switch. It's not that simple in the slightest. And even if you think your chronic illness does have some sort of predictability, again, like mine, it really is heavily affected by my menstrual cycle. It's still, I can't really predict that I'll be okay or not. And when we set a society up like that, if you end up having one later on in life, you've been conditioned especially to really think you should be able to get back to normal. And you grieve. The grieving is so heavy, and it's something that nobody ever can prepare you for, because you are watching things happen in front of you and watching life go by, and you're just there trapped in a body that is really struggling. And it's like picking the days out of like a needle in a haystack, basically. It's like picking those days out to be like, maybe this will be the day, and if it's not, well, I'll just have to again give it up. It's really hard. It's really hard. And I feel like this whole conditioning that we've got and everything in society with a 9 to 5 and a long school day is heavily reflecting a patriarchal capitalist society, and it's doing nobody good. And I mean, I think about this a lot. I think about it so much, mostly because of the type of content I do usually make and things I do talk about online. But this idea of the same push to bounce back after a rest period and recovery comes up in other areas of life as well, such as the 9 to 5. Attendance in school is one of the biggest ones I can't understand, and just the typical school day anyway, because it really goes against child development in so many ways. And I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this, all of it if anything, is caused by the patriarchy and capitalism, don't get me wrong, but patriarchy I would say is the biggest driver of it, because the days aren't based off the average woman's hormonal cycle or a child's development stage. And it's kind of funny because, I mean, it's not funny because it's diabolically hard to live with, but it's interesting how the default obviously reflects and benefits an average man's body. Whereas a woman, even if she's very healthy and quite well, her periods and menstrual cycle and menopause and perimenopause, pregnancy, postpartum, all these things that could happen in a woman's life can alter her productivity, and there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. The next side of that is obviously children. They are completely different to adults and what they can do, and yet attendance in school, especially in the UK and England, is very harsh. The aim to have 100% attendance is disgusting and diabolical. Kids being in school for 6 hours plus at a time every day is diabolical. These things crop up in early life, throughout life, depending on your gender, depending on your age. And it gets to the point where you become an adult and it can just completely get shattered and dissolve very quickly when you become disabled or ill. Now, if you're ill or disabled since you were born, basically, it's something you've obviously lived with, but it's also something you've probably started to recognize and realize very early on, and it's horrible. All these different changes, it doesn't make you any less human, and it doesn't mean you're any less reliable. It just literally means that society has never been set up for different changes and different people's needs. And the standard pace is killing everybody at the end of the day, because now mental health is rife. That's also what's happening. If you're so productive and you're constantly showing up in life to be productive, it can really burn you out. This outlook on perceived laziness and not being productive is slowly killing people. It's killing people all the time, and then we wonder why, and it's literally because we can't for the life of us think, you know what, maybe a 9 to 5 for 5 days a week isn't the best thing we could be doing for everybody, because it pushes us to make children be like that in school, and we think that's normal, and we think it's okay to say that to children, and we think it's okay that, oh well, they're doing this so they get used to it from the workplace. And it's like, maybe that's where the issue is. Maybe that's where the issue is, because then the next part of that, like I said, is if you have a chronic illness like me and you were conditioned and thinking you could show up in the work life world and just get on with it and do your 9 to 5 or whatever job you have and always show up, it's horrible when it just completely shatters in front of you and you come to the realization you cannot keep up to that standard pace. And so, like I've said, when you have a flare-up, and let's just say you've had an acute illness on top of it, it's horrible, because you're like, well, I was ill. I was ill with something that I'm not usually ill with, and I've just had to get through that. Surely, logically, I should be okay for a while before my next actual real flare-up. But in my case, it's like I had a flare-up straight away, and then I had another flare-up, like another horrible one, like completely different level, and it just drained the life out of me. And for all I know, I could just go back to how I was and be really bad again for another week. And it's just one of those things where I'm feeling a lot more better, but who knows, something else could just set me off and then I could just be struggling again for so long. But yeah, it's just more the fact that I think most people seem to think laziness and resting is not doing enough, when really people who need the most rest, and when their rest fluctuates and when their productivity also changes up, doesn't mean they're not trying their best, because if anything, their body's doing a lot of work, like a lot, and you feel it in every inch of your body, and it's so horrible to carry that weight of it and still try and show up, because you're showing up harder than the average person, and people don't realize how much you have to go through in order to get to one little part. And there's so much privilege in having an able body, and it's really difficult, because sometimes in the middle of it all, when you think you're getting better, you're like, cool, I feel motivated to get back to what I was really excited to do in the first place. And then all of a sudden it just gets swept from beneath your feet. It feels like someone's just literally pulled a rug underneath your feet and is laughing at you about it. And then they do it again when you least expect it. And then they do it again and again and again. And you don't get used to it. Even though sometimes you can say, oh, I'm kind of used to this. You're not really actually used to it, because you have no idea like when certain symptoms can come out, how bad the pain's going to be, and it is just exhausting. I think the worst part of it is, as well, is like I get extra suspicious when I'm having my good days, so sometimes that can kind of take away a whole day. Like I kind of waste the day, because I'm like, okay, maybe I should take it easy, because sometimes I flare up really bad randomly through the day, and then it's like, well, there we go, my day has been decided for me. It's like very, very mentally draining, because it's so hard to try and keep up with it, because there is no keeping up with it, to be fair. Once you feel like you've got used to the flare up or something, all of a sudden you're better, and then you're like, oh, I've got to go back to this. And then you get used to being really good and feeling like, oh my gosh, I can do so much, I can do everything I really enjoy doing, and then all of a sudden it gets taken from you again. And it's this never-ending vicious cycle, and it's so mentally draining. It's so hard, because you can't just give your chronic illness or disability to someone to have a break. It's with you no matter what, and it doesn't stop just because you want to do something. But yeah, and it's just sad, because when you look at society as a whole, we've really set it up so bad where we think the norm is to be productive all day, every day, basically, to the point where we have a 5-day working week and 2 days to rest, which is weird to me, because why, when it just doesn't make any sense, because humans aren't supposed to be doing that much, and just because you can doesn't mean you should and everybody else should. And it's got to the point where it's affecting children, it's affecting people with illness and disabilities, and it's affecting people who are completely able-bodied and then they become ill or disabled. I feel like if the norm was the opposite, where we really respect and accommodate different fluctuations in people's natures and needs, it wouldn't be as bad. Like, I don't feel like an adequate adult a lot of the time, because I'm always just thinking, why am I always needing to rest? Why am I always doing this? And you start being harsh on yourself, because society doesn't accept people who need to rest more. It really doesn't. And it's horrible, because it's not like people who need to rest more aren't capable of being productive and doing things. If anything, we're more productive because we're trying to do it hard, like we're going through more barriers to get to where we need to be than the average person. It can be so hard where you have that mental clarity and you're like, cool, I can physically think of like planning my videos, for instance, or doing whatever work that needs to be done, but your body is not allowing it to happen. And it's very hard and it's so difficult to experience. Like, you'd think having a chronic illness would mean your body and your immune system, like it's enough chaos already. But nope, acute illnesses like a flu or a cold, a stomach bug, still want to show up to the party and be like, hey, just going to remind you, you can still experience this. I just wanted to do this video and just ease myself back into creating content. I am really hoping the next 10 days or so I'm well and can just get back to something normal, like making these videos and doing my normal day-to-day living things. But who knows? Who knows? Who knows? That's just the life draining out of me now, where I'm just like, it would actually tear me apart if, say, tomorrow I just got really bad again. Right, I think I'm just gonna rest up for the rest of the day and take it easy, because I'm being suspicious now for the rest of the day and also tomorrow and the rest of the week at this point. I really hope I can get through this and just have a good next 2 weeks before it probably starts all over again. But yeah, if you did enjoy this type of content, which is slightly different to what I'm usually talking about, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and also comment down below if you do have a disability or chronic illness, or share opinions on perceived laziness and productivity and resting. And also don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And yeah, I shall hopefully see you in my next video.